Hey guys, and welcome to Should You Buy It, where all we do is talk a little bit about the game and whether or not we think it's worth the cost.
In this episode, we'll be playing Keplerth, the game with suspiciously similar graphics to RimWorld, where instead of controlling many characters, you will only control one in this simple yet well-designed RPG.
Now, the first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, Keplerth is currently in full release and available on PC for $15.
So what exactly is the game? Well, Keplerth may look oddly familiar to a popular game called RimWorld, but don't be fooled, as other than graphical art style, they have almost zero in common.
Keplerth focuses on a sci-fi RPG gameplay style. When you first start the game, you will be given the option to choose your race, which can be anything from a boarman to a half-elf. Each one of these races will present somewhat passive changes to your gameplay. For an example, one might give you an extra percentage of move speed, while the other might give you an increased attack buff.
When you do create your character though, you will also have the option to choose that character's difficulty. There is casual, which makes it so you lose nothing upon death, tough, which makes it so all items in your backpack will be dropped on death, and then finally you have hardcore, which will make it so that if you die, your character will be lost forever. The difficulty options go up once again by allowing you to choose the difficulty of the world you're going to be playing in. These include easy, normal, and expert, which each increase the base difficulty of the monsters you're going to fight within the game. The final option you have before starting is whether or not you want monster invasions to be a thing in your game. Monster invasions happen every once in a while and simply spawn in mobs that will attempt to attack your base.
One of the great things about Keplerth though is much like other games in the survival genre, it will allow you to move your character between worlds. This means if you beat the game on easy and decide you want to try it on a harder difficulty, you won't have to restart the entire game and start your character's progress over. Instead, you will only have to start the world itself's progress over. There is also a special area in the game that you can teleport to, known as the Uninhabited Island, that allows you to store items in your own personal little mini world. That mini world is then accessible from all other main worlds that you decide to take that character to. This is great if you want to move a large amount of items to a new world and simply don't want to drag each item over into your backpack.
Progression in Keplerth is pretty straightforward. You have the above ground zone and several different underground zones. Each underground zone can be accessed from anywhere in the world simply by placing down some stairs or an elevator. However, in order to survive for more than a few seconds in the underground zones, you'll have to defeat the previous depth's boss. For an example, defeating the first above ground boss will give you access to the first 4 floors of depths in the caves. Then, defeating the Goblin King boss, which is located in those first 4 floors, will give you access to floors 5 through 9. This progression system will continue throughout most of the game until of course you reach the final boss.
Defeating each boss will also unlock a special workbench that will give you access to new recipes in a higher tier of gear than you had before. Reaching lower levels will also unlock the ability to find higher tier ores such as iron, silver, and gold, which are all required to craft better armor and weapons. Speaking of weapons, we probably should take some time to talk about Keplerth's combat systems, since at its surface it seems rather shallow.
Now, gear is the most direct and simplistic form of progression within Keplerth. Gear in this game works much the same as it does in games like Terraria, where you'll have sets that increase one aspect of combat, such as melee or range damage, in an attempt to give you a sense of a class. There are also plenty of accessories or trinket-like items that will also provide you with passive buffs, such as increased attack speed, move speed, shields, light, or just about anything else you would imagine could be a passive benefit. I will say that some of the weapons though are not just your stereotypical sword and spear, but come in the form of things like purple laser beams with infinite ammo.
The last major aspect of combat, however, is the companion systems. Companions come in 2 different forms, the first of which is pets. Pets in Keplerth are interesting because each one has a different ability from another. For an example, a bear might have a chance to stun on hit with increased defense, whereas an alien cat monster might give you increased attack speed. My favorite part about pets though is that they can be mounted and ridden around. This means yes, if you find and tame a border collie, then you can ride them into combat. Now, the second part of companions is the follower system.
For all intensive purposes, followers serve the same role as a pet, just they can't be mounted. Instead, they are unique because they have been cloned by using gene modules that you obtain through trading with villagers. This means that you could have an extremely powerful archer companion with tons of crit damage, or you could have an extremely tanky boarman companion that reflects 800% of its damage taken back at the enemy.
Now, I do want to mention that the game has plenty of additional features such as the SOS, Survivor, breeding, and farming systems. Each of these play their own important role in the gameplay, but none of them are nearly as impactful to the gameplay as some of the things that we previously discussed. I just wanted to make sure it was known that these systems are in fact in the game for those of you who are interested in them.
Now, before we move into the pros and cons, we would like to mention one of our favorite places to buy games, which is Humble Bundle. Now, aside from the fact that you can purchase basically any game for PC and console all in one place, and the fact that becoming a Humble Bundle member will earn you tons of free games every month and give you great discounts on purchases, Humble Bundle also gives you the ability to donate to a great cause and help support this channel. If you are interested in getting some great deals on games while supporting charity, check out our link in the description below. With that being said, first up for the pros is that the game has a solid foundation for progression that is built upon its predecessor's gameplay styles. This means things like progression may feel a bit simplistic or even overused at first, but without it, the game wouldn't have a solid foundation to build its innovative ideas on. Next up for the pros is that the gene editing system is quite simply just awesome. Most RPG games use some form of leveling or talent system in order to progress your character, but Keplerth has taken the idea of a talent system and molded it into their gene editing system. The idea of playing a mini puzzle game in order to fit your character's talents into their build was interesting and engaging rather than something copy-pasted from another game. And lastly for the pros is the companion systems. Whether it was taming different creatures and using their different traits and buffs, or creating your replicant, both felt meaningful and fun to engage with. The replicant system in particular seems like it can have tons of different build variations that can dramatically affect the way that you may take on combat.
Now for the cons. First up for the cons today is that the game has RimWorld graphics, and that's not to say that RimWorld graphics are necessarily a bad thing, it's just the fact that they are basically straight up taken right from RimWorld and put into this game with a little bit of flavor. I really wish they would have came up with a little bit more of a unique graphic system instead of just implementing what they already had access to. Next for the cons is that a lot of the game's current systems just feel kind of unfinished, like they needed more time in that oven to get ready to go before they put them out. What I'm talking about here are things like the farming system, which just feel a little bit incomplete and kind of slapped into the game, as well as the raid system where you get attacked by different monsters. There's a couple other things as well that I definitely think could use work, but personally these are just two of mine that I did not enjoy that much. Now our last con today is one that I personally did not experience, but one that I have heard a lot about, and that's that the last boss in the game is not fightable through co-op. I don't really know why this is, to be honest with you. Every other boss in the game, every other thing in the game can be done through cooperative mode, but when you get to that final boss, from what we understand, you're just not able to fight him with your friend. I really hope this changes. I don't know if this was intended or not, but if it is, feel free to let me know why it is down in the comments.
So now it's time for the rating for the game, and when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that we spend on the game. So in this game in particular, in Keplerth, we would want to get roughly 15 hours of enjoyment out of the $15 that we spent. And after putting well over 24 played hours into this game, we give it 8 out of 10 potatoes.
Keplerth is a largely combat-oriented game, and the combat in it is definitely well fleshed out for such a low-costing title. The downside though is that because it's such a highly combat-oriented game, it tends to have some rather less than well-polished mechanics outside of combat. Things like farming, defending your base from invasions, and managing settlers in your base all seem almost like just completely unfinished mechanics that just needed a little bit more time in the oven and they could have been great. With that being said though, the bosses felt amazing and progression felt solid. When you take into account the cost of the game, even though it does have its flaws, we feel it's safe to say that Keplerth is more than likely worth the cost.
Before you guys go, thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy the video, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe for more survival game content. I just want to shout out Jonathan S. and Jim Phillips. Thank you guys so much for being members. We couldn't do this without you, and also a shout out to all of our new subscribers here on screen. Now don't forget to check out all of our links in the description below for things like our music library and Epic Games creator code, as these are just ways for you to help support the channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching again, and we'll see you next time.